Do you know what I did today?
What did you
Not
do today?
today. I did this week. And I was really proud of myself because it felt simultaneously very luxurious and also extraordinarily grown up. I went to Sephora and I bought myself like new makeup for
Nice.
my new grown-up skin.
I do enjoy going to Sephora and asking, like, what's your favorite moisturizer?
Yeah, I bought like
just pitch me.
primer that has like hydro something in it. And I bought like tinted concealer because Instagram told me that I shouldn't be using tinted moisture. Wait, what did I buy? Hang on. I bought tinted moisturizer because Instagram told me that I shouldn't be using like foundation anymore because that's like so 2023. And then I bought these like very cool like eyeshadow stick things and then new makeup brushes because here's the thing that you have never had to deal with, having a tiny thief in your house.
Yeah, sure.
Who messes with your stuff. And then where does it go? Who can say? Into the wall. Because I can't find them.
You need like a decoy makeup box.
This little creature has her own decoy makeup box.
No, but she wants your stuff because you get the good stuff and she gets like, you know, the shit
She
from
gets whatever
wherever.
my sister bought her for Christmas. 11 years old, absolutely stealing all my stuff. Anyway, I bought new brushes. So I'm feeling just like really lovely.
I like that for you. That's nice.
I am not wearing makeup right now. Someday I will put it on and then you will go, my goodness, Sarah, what a grown-up face.
I don't know how to take care of myself. I don't really know how to do my hair or put on makeup.
I hate to say it to you, but the rumors are true and you should definitely be moisturizing.
And my mother is like, are you moisturizing? Listen, we were in Sephora together. This was like when I was home. It must have been last fall. So I'm like looking at this like Shiseido eye cream. And my mom's like, I'll get it for you. And I was like, Mom, it's $60. And she looked at me and she held my hand and she said, let me just tell you something. If you don't wear the $60 eye cream now, wait till you have to see what you get when you're my age.
Yeah. Wait till the dermatologist gets involved.
She was like, let me get this for you. And I was like, I surrender to that logic.
When I was growing up, my mother was an oil of Olay user. And because here's the truth. Elizabeth Warren has been using Pond's cold cream for her whole life. And she looks like a witch. Like, she looks like she has like drunk the blood of some creature in order to have such perfect skin.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that that is true. I think if you are out there and you are very young, you can use oil of Olay for your whole life.
Yeah, right.
Because you started young. So get out there. This is my ad for oil of Olay teen.
OOT is probably would have some really cute name. Yeah, no, it's true. Moisturize, everybody. Wear sunscreen. You'll thank us later.
And wear sunscreen. Listen, everybody, here's where I'm going to bring it down a notch. My brother died of melanoma a year and a half ago. And like, wear sunscreen and go to the doctor. And welcome to Fated Mates, everyone. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them and I care about your skin health.
I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor, and I also care about your skin health. And based on the amount of money I spend, I also care about my child's skin health. Kids these days really do care about their skin. I think it's a good idea.
Kids these days are spoiled rotten is also true.
Yeah, that's true. I did get really upset one day. I was listening to like the middle schoolers talk about like serums, and I was like, "You're 12. You don't need a serum. I need a serum. No, none of you." And they just looked at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, I do. You don't need that.
You need oil of Olay teen.
There are no serums in the oil of Olay teen line. We all know that. Listen, if some dermatologist even bothers to like be like, they do need a serum, you're a scammer. You are selling snake oil serum to 12-year-olds.
We're losing dermatologist listeners. We're right now.
I don't think
No, I honestly think my dermatologist would laugh if I said, does my 11-year-old need a serum? She needs sunscreen.
She needs sunscreen. Exactly. Okay, fine. We're
Anyway, now we're done. Eric's like, okay, team.
Listen, we're
You've
allowed to
talked
talk
through
about
the skincare
Sephora.
window.
Everyone talks about Sephora.
Listen,
We're
Eric,
not talking
you don't
about.
even know. Eric's never been in a Sephora. He doesn't know. Sephora is.
I bet it wouldn't even let him in. I bet if you don't believe in Sephora, like gate slam.
Those ladies in
face,
black, just like,
right? Just like, we can tell you, you are going to be the bad vibes. You're bringing bad vibes into the store. You have to believe in Sephora to come into Sephora.
I mean, what is great about Sephora is it really is also like the great equalizer. Like every woman in the world just gets into Sephora and is like, oh yeah, this is the dream.
I do also like Ulta. Do you have Ulta where you are?
I don't. I mean, there probably is one in New York City, but I don't know where it is. Usually they're in like a strip mall somewhere.
Yeah, Ulta is like a slightly more democratic. I think they what I like about Ulta is they have like the fancy stuff, but then they also have like the full Neutrogena line.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's like I kind of like that you can be like, all right, I need this $80 dermalogical serum, which I do need, everybody. And then I'm also going to buy Neutrogena moisturizer or whatever. So I do kind of like, I like the vibes of an Ulta too.
Yeah. I have fallen into the rabbit hole of dermatology TikTok, but not like makeup TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. Instagram, I guess, is what I've fallen into. But TikTok has become like the Kleenex of social media video, I feel like. But what I have fallen into is like dermatologists watching reaction videos to like skincare.
Oh, I bet that's
systems.
Wild.
And actually, it's pretty fun to watch because often dermatologists are like, I don't know what the fuck is happening.
Like, absolutely not. Yeah.
Things you definitely don't need a 22-step skincare regime.
Yeah. You know what? I probably would enjoy that too. You can send me one of those next time. See a good one.
I will. There's a guy I really like who's like, I'm your local dermatologist and I'm telling you this is nonsense.
You don't need this. Yeah.
The takeaway is, Jen, you need sunscreen.
Yeah.
And also a vitamin C serum. He really likes that.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I feel like they smell funny. It's not my favorite thing.
Put them on at night and then you don't have to worry about it. And it doesn't smell funny all day. Actually, night's probably the worst time. Put it on during the morning.
I don't know, I guess. Anyway, it's fine. I have serums I like. Everybody, it's fine.
Anyway, the point is, but here's what's true about sunscreen, about skincare. It's really about self-care. And let's talk about other ways that you can self-care. Like, for example, everyone, why don't you come to Faded Mates Live in St. Louis?
It's very exciting. Okay, Sarah, you have a big announcement to make about your book tour.
I do. This week, we announced the These Summer Storms book tour. I will be in 8 cities in the United States and then also in some cities around the globe later in the summer, which is very posh and exciting. Feels very fancy.
These summer stops. Okay,
These summer stops. This summer tour, of course, I'm using all of these frames to announce things, but I'm super excited. But let's get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the whole tour, but on July 8th, which is my release day, Tuesday, July 8th, Jen and I will be in the great city of St. Louis, Missouri.
Yes.
With the great bookstore, Novel Neighbor, and our very favorite, now too many times to count guest, Kate Claiborne, who's flying to the Midwest just to hang with us on my release day. And we're going to have Faded Mates Live Midwest.
I know. I'm so excited.
Everyone is driving in. You crazy people.
I was like, well, I'm just going to drive to St. Louis, from Chicago. So it's like 5 hours. It's just not even a big deal. And Sarah was like, excuse me, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, and then the entire conversation on the Discord is people being like, it's only 6 hours, so I'm just going to drive. And Sarah being like, what's happening?
Oh, and it's like, I'm driving from Tennessee. I'm driving from Florida. Like, what? What? Everyone, people who already know about this are people who are on our Discord, because if you join the Patreon, the Fated Mates Patreon, you get early access to Fated Mates tickets. But there are still Fated Mates tickets around and available, and you can join us in St. Louis with Kate. Fated Mates Live is super fun.
It's so fun.
It's like the biggest, best romance party out there. Novel Neighbor, by the way, is a legendary store for romance. I've never been there, but already Stephanie and the team at Novel Neighbor are like so excited about having Fated Mates. They've been begging for a Fated Mates for a long time, a Fated Mates Live. And here we are, finally getting to the Midwest. Jen is road tripping, and then Jen and I are road tripping with Kate.
Yeah.
Back to Chicago the next day.
Yes.
Because I have a tour date in Chicago that evening.
You do.
Jen's feeling feelings about it, but let's wait.
Fine.
Let's talk about the tour itself.
Talk about the tour itself, please. Yeah.
So everybody, the book. Oh, Fated Mates Live. The ticket price is $45. It comes with a copy of These Summer Storms. I'm super excited to be coming to St. Louis, where I've never been, and we can't wait to see our Midwest listeners. As many of you as will come.
So everybody, I know we're not giving tons of like actual details, but if you go to show notes, you'll be able to click on all the things.
If you want more information about Fated Mates Live, you can go to fatedmates.net/live. So anyway, but if you can't come to St. Louis and hang out with us on the 8th, that's okay. You can come to other places and hang out with me, or come to Chicago and hang out with me and Jen again. My tour starts July 7th in New York. At Barnes & Noble Union Square with Tia Williams as my conversation partner. We love Tia. We've had her on the podcast. On July 8th, it's, of course, Fated Mates Live in St. Louis. On July 9th, I'll be at Wilson Abbey in Chicago, Illinois, in conversation with Veronica Roth.
Yeah, and that's in support of the Women and Children First Bookstore, which is a great Chicago, like a local legend of a bookstore here in Chicago.
And Jen will be there, and we'll have Fated Mates stickers, and you'll be able to see her, and it'll be great.
I'm probably going to drag Mr. Reed's Romance and A Little Romance to this event.
What?
They'll both be in town. They're here.
That'll be so
I'm
fun.
going to make them experience, like, me as famous.
Oh, yay. I love that.
Yeah, so that'll be really fun, everybody. Yeah.
And then on Thursday, July 10th, I'll be in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at Bookmarks Bookshop, which is, I mean, just incredible. In conversation with Renee Adzia, who is a known YA writer, but also has her first adult contemporary kind of romance, dysfunctional family romance out in June. That's called Park Avenue. And if you love a dysfunctional family, you should check that one out. On the 15th, I'll be in Cambridge, Massachusetts with Adriana Herrera at Love Struck Books. We'll be at the First Parish Church, so we'll be, we might be smitten or smoten or smited.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that word is. See,
maybe
I don't even know.
In every tense, present, past, and future, it could happen.
On the 16th of July, I'll be in Decatur, Georgia at Eagle Eye Bookshop with the Mary Kay Andrews, who is frankly who I want to be when I grow up these days.
Mary Kay, I love you.
I know. I told the group chat about this, and they were all like, what? This is the big, we are starstruck by this one.
This lady is baller. Yeah.
And then my final stop, at least to date, is July 17th. I'll be in Franklin, Indiana at the Wild Geese Bookshop with Rebecca Bauman from the Lilly Library.
Yeah, I might be like, moseying down there for that one too, just for funsies.
Show up.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be like, is Jen here again? What the fuck? I'm like, you're in the Midwest.
Well, if you come to Wild Geese, come up and hang out with Rebecca and me on stage. That'd be so fun. Anyway, you all, that is the tour for These Summer Storms. Every single one of these stops, the ticket price is the cost of the book. So you'll be able to leave with a copy of These Summer Storms. I will happily sign it for you. We can take pictures. I will have Fated Mates stickers. I will have other cool stuff. And I'm so excited. This is actually my first book tour ever. So I've done obviously lots of events, but I've never done, 8 cities and 12 days or however long this
Wow.
is. So I'm very excited, and I hope, but I'm also very nervous that nobody will come see me. So I hope you'll come see me. You can find all this information by going to fatedmates.net/live, and it'll link directly to my tour page. And of course, we'll put everything in show notes. But, and if you go to sarahmclean.net, which is my website, everything's there. And now, thank you so much for letting me talk about myself for a little bit of time.
I mean, everyone's so excited. I think it's going to be awesome. Yay!
It's happening.
It's happening. It's happening. And you know what? We all need great things to look forward to this summer. So really, really fun. Okay, one last thing to kind of remind everybody to look at, a really fun new initiative that Eric is spearheading and is like just probably my new favorite thing on our website. So he has thought of this great idea we're calling the collections department. Only, you know, it's not like your student loan company calling for your money. It is us telling you about great romances to read.
I thought it was more like library collections.
Oh, cute. I thought it was more like, you know,
we want to take your money. I mean, which we do.
We kind of do. It's true. But like for romance books, which seems nice.
We want you to give your money to romance novels.
And the thing that's really fun, I think, is that these are like things that maybe we haven't had like full episodes on, or they're just like somebody's, you know, like the microtrope they love. So like one of my favorites is Andy J. Christopher made a Kidnapping is for Lovers. Because listen, who doesn't love a kidnapping? And so, and you know, this is also one of these things I liked about Andy's is like, it's a really good mix of like, you know, historical, contemporary, mafia, right? Like Zoe Draven, it's got like the whole 9 yards. And so I think that this is also really fun, is to just have like a different like way to slice like the romance pie is like one way I think about it, right? Like you have something you love, and then here is a fun collection. I think the other cool thing about it is I am often a person who I'm like, if I look at a list like this and I'm like, wait, I've read 2 of these books and really love them, then it just gives me a way to be like, okay, I probably will like the rest of these too. They have something in common with books I already love. So,
yep. And also the other cool thing about it that I really like is I'll be like, I don't know what I feel like reading, but I feel like reading something good.
Yes.
Like something somebody I trust says is good. So what we're trying to do is really make these collections uniquely small in the sense of they're microtropes. Or you know, they have something really, if it's something like, for example, food and romance, like my friend Shane did one that's like food in historicals, right? Like, so I think what you'll be able to do is scroll through, you know, a real human being and not an algorithm has created this list, and it's books that they really love. And so you're going to have a great time. Head over to fatedmates.net/collections, or just go to fatedmates.net and there's a link to the collections page right on the front page. And enjoy. And all the links go to bookshop.org unless there is no bookshop.org link for an ebook, at which point we send you to the other place.
The other place. Yes. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to shop the other place.
I have a book coming out in July, so thanks to the other place, I guess, too.
All right. So check out the collections department. It's really fun. And Eric I think it feels like maybe like one a week goes up, or every, you know, couple days, depending. And I know he's got a ton that are
There's
of like
a
backlog. But I think that's great, because then it's like, you know, you don't want to get overwhelmed.
Keep coming back. It gives you a reason to keep coming around, hanging out with us.
Exactly.
At least once a week, I'll think to myself, all those people, they like to listen to us for some reason.
One of my coworkers told the kids, they were like, she's famous, me.
Aw.
Right? And then she sent the kids in to be like, why are you famous? And I was like, I'm going to kill Ashley.
Don't go listening to that.
Yeah, I was like, that's not for you. But then I was like, listen, you guys listen to me talk about books all day, and you have to. And then I assign you homework. I was like, you don't want to listen to talking about books on your free time. And they're like, yeah, that is actually true. So don't worry, I deterred them.
I was at Romancing the Craft this weekend, which was this incredible one-day kind of workshop-filled craft session for romance novelists that's run by Adriana Herrera. And she put it together, and it was magnificent. It was a Rutgers University, and Adriana and I did our writing the romance session, and then there were some great other sessions. You know, somebody came up to me afterward. A couple of people were there who were Fated Mates listeners, and then one woman came up to me like in the bathroom, and she was like, "I just need you to know that you're always like, when I hear you talk, it's the strangest experience because you have been with me like in my head for years in like private space." And I was like, it is a weird, it's weird.
Sure.
You know, you must feel this too sometimes when you speak like at a conference or whatever, like you start talking and there's sort of a like moment where the whole room is like, oh, wait, what's...
Wait, Fated Mates is on. Oh no, they're here for real. It is, yeah, for sure weird.
But you got to be careful. There's no gossiping allowed when you're us now, because if somebody overhears you saying something, they know exactly who said it. Anyway, I just want to also say, if you are writing romance in any form, even, you know, if you've been writing romance or you're thinking about writing romance or you're in the middle of a romance, follow Romancing the Craft on Instagram. We'll put links in show notes. Pay attention to what they're up to, because I think the goal is to have at least one of these a year. Adriana is doing incredible work pulling together like these really fascinating workshops filled with people who have years worth of experience and such incredible skill. And so if you have the opportunity to go to one of these, I highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, I was at the Steamy Lit one. I think anytime the focus is on writing, it is really nice. The Chicago North Romance Writers chapter does a every other year writing, and it's not romancing the craft, right? But it is about writing. And I just think it's so nice for authors to be with authors to talk about writing as opposed to like reader event spaces, which just have a different focus. It's not that that's bad or wrong.
It's true. And, but as part of it, Adriana and I talked about the third act breakup, which is our topic for the day, though it had been intended long before we did this event this weekend. Because it's a hot button issue for some reason.
It is.
And so we're going to talk today about the third act breakup, how it works, why it's important, and maybe also like why people seem to misunderstand it, or how people seem to misunderstand it. I don't know if we're going to do it in that order, but those are three things I want to really get to. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Anna Todd, author of The Last Sunrise.
Anna Todd is back, baby. So talk about a phenom. And so in this, we have 22-year-old Araya Rai Para. And her mom's job is temporarily relocating them to Mallorca. And she is really hoping that this is going to be the summer that's going to just like kind of start her life. Raya suffered through chronic health issues, and her mother is super overprotective, and she is like the definition of sheltered. And so she just has been like waiting for her life to begin and is hoping that this, a summer in Spain is the answer. So in her first act of rebellion, she heads off to the beach alone and meets a very handsome, charming Spaniard named Julian. And he makes Rye feel even, kind of more naive and inexperienced than she normally does, right? Like just that sort of, he's a worldly European man, but she's super attracted to him. And he, I think, realizes that there's something to this girl. So as the summer continues, Julian pulls Rye out of her shell and into these adventures she's always craved. But as the summer comes to a close and her return to America is like staring her in the face, Rye has to decide if she's brave enough to finally follow her heart and live for herself and follow her, this man, or kind of be the good girl who's following the rules.
Oh boy. Well, if you are, as we are, very excited about a new Anna Todd book, you can get this one right now in print, ebook, or audiobook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title and be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Anna Todd for sponsoring this week's episode.
a lot of people don't want it. And so if you're one of those people, you're like, I don't like it. I don't think we're trying to like convince you. I don't, not your jam, whatever. But I do think that if you don't like it, that doesn't mean no book should have it.
Right.
And if you do like it, it doesn't mean that all books should have it, right? I think a lot of people think about the third act breakup as a plotting problem. And I actually think that it works best when it's rooted in character. And I think that this is why maybe there are like these, it feels like sort of people just like miss each other when they have these conversations.
Yes. I think people misunderstand what we mean. I think there are two ways of looking at the third act breakup. And I think writers and like people who really are thinking about the text think and understand like the structure of a romance novel and like what a romance is and how a romance has to exist in order for it to be a satisfactory romance. Think about the words third act breakup as shorthand. And then there is the reader perception of what third act breakup means literally. Right?
Right.
So I think many people who are not like in this world having these conversations all the time hear the term third act breakup and think quite literally, oh, that means the characters in the third act at the climactic moment of the book break up. In some cases, that is actually what happens.
And I mean, look, I get why, like, right? Like, you're like, but that's actually what it's called. But like the World Series isn't the World Series either.
I mean, but it makes sense, right? Like that, like if you don't think, you guys, I get it. A lot of people don't listen to Fated Mates and don't think about romance. Like they just like the books, and that's fine. But then I think like when you're in the business, like all of us and our, however many tens of thousands closest friends this morning on Wednesday, if we are ourselves thinking about third act breakup, we're thinking about something very different. Like sometimes it's a breakup, sometimes it's, sometimes like there's just like a crisis moment. Sometimes there's a moment of danger where one character is in particular danger. Often it's about sacrifice, like something important is being sacrificed. Often and always, 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 underline always, it's about a test. When we talk about romance novels of Fated Mates for 7 seasons, we've been talking about Western story structure, right? So like caveat, Western story structure. But like, I think you would be very hard pressed to find a successful romance novel that fully lacks what we refer to in shorthand as a third act breakup. Because I think the test...
Yeah, the test, right.
Or else there's no arc. Like there's no end.
Characters are on a journey in a romance. They have to be. All the people start off in one place where they are like, I am the way I am, and I don't have a romantic relationship in my life. And not love, right? Like they might have family and friends or coworkers and colleagues, but I don't have some romantic relationship in my life. And either they want it or they don't, but like that's like the opening status of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, right, by the end, they are in a romantic relationship. And the thing about that, for people who are in romantic relationships of any kind, whether it's now or in the past or whatever, know that takes an incredible amount of like, you as a person have to decide, is it worth it? Is the relationship I'm going to form with this person or these people worth what I will have to give up or lose as an individual moving forward? Because every relationship in your life is going to require different things of you. Right. And so for me, I think that's why like there's the test is just the people really. For me, I often say, like, if you don't want to call the third act breakup, fine. But it's the point at which people decide to stay together. Right? Like, I could, at this point, have walked away.
Right.
It could have been over and done, and I could have just gone back to me at the beginning. But
yeah,
instead, I'm going to, like, go through it to, like, this other place.
This is going to be a very craft heavy episode because, like, when I think about writing, right, I think about where I'm starting the book, right? And when I think about starting a book, we think about what's called the inciting incident. And so the inciting incident of a book is like just the moment the story starts, right? Like, this is the right place for you to literally open the book and see the characters. This is where we begin. And often there's something very active that happens in that moment. There's something like that motivates a character to action, right? Like, the goal is to see a character. There is no interest in reading a book, or at least a romance novel, in my opinion, about a character who's in stasis.
Right.
Right.
That's it. Like, right. Something happens.
So as you sort of move through the world of the book, you're watching a character move from comfort to something else entirely, right? And this, love, relationships, they are uncomfortable sometimes. They are often uncomfortable. And certainly learning to who you are in relationship is discomfort. So Michael Haig, who is a script doctor in Hollywood and has like a number of, he has this great audiobook that we will link in show notes called The Hero's Two Journeys. And he talks literally about like, he grounds everything in like cinema, like how you write a movie, how like the beats of a film. And one of the things that he says when he talks about just how you write a character is given the choice between safety and happiness, humans will almost always choose safety.
Yeah.
Right? And our work in romance, because we are a genre that like traffics in joy and hope and happily ever after, is to get characters to a place where they are willing to sacrifice safety for happiness.
Right. Correct. Every good romance is that journey.
Yeah. And so safety is, for the last 30 years, I have been comfortable however I was. But now, after these 350 pages, I am in love. I have a new person or people in my life. They are driving me to be my best self, in the words of Jane Ann Krentz. And now I have to choose that self, that best self, with them over
the safety of who I was. Yeah. And what I knew. So I think like the thing that's then like really important to say is the third act breakup, right? Now, again, I think that's true. I think that's true of every romance novel. I think there's, again, like, I think Western story structure is, I like it.
Well, that's the structure we're comfortable with and that we operate in.
And there are lots of books I've read that aren't that, and that's fine too. And then I mean, like, not just in romance. This is like across literature.
But like when we talk about genre fiction, when we talk about mysteries, thrillers, sci-fi, romance, like these are, this is a story structure that is known and has beats.
Yes, right. Because I think the thing about genre romance is it's delivering something. So like, just like the entire rest of this conversation, like, it's not that there aren't outliers, or it's not that there aren't people who are doing it differently. Of course there are, like, but we're just talking about like this structure and how it works and why it works and why we like it. So here's the one other thing I want to say about the inciting incident, because I do think this is really important when you're talking about this, also kind of like where it ends. When I teach this to kids, and like all of you learn this at school, the plot and all that bullshit, right? One of the things I say about the inciting incident is that it introduces a set of conflicts to the character, right? So the thing that happens isn't just like a meet cute, right? It has to introduce a struggle for the characters into the system of the story. And the thing about the third act breakup, and the thing about like moving past, is like, in order to move past it, in order to like move on, whatever it is, whatever conflict that's introduced at the inciting incident has to be like handled and managed, right? Like a character has to essentially overcome that. One of the things I think is a really common like complaint about the third act breakup is like, it comes out of nowhere. Well, that's just like a poorly written third act breakup, right? Because a good third act breakup is rooted in the inciting incident in some ways. It's rooted in like the characters themselves and kind of what got them into this mess of like falling in love with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the biggest complaint, especially when it's like an actual breakup, is that it's like perfunctory.
Here's where they break up.
Yeah, and you know what? Fair. But like I said, just because sometimes it's poorly written doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. And I think that's why we want to talk about like good ones today, or like what they're doing, or like why it works, or why it's effective. And so, like, let's not throw out the third act breakup baby with the bathwater.
So when I talk about this in workshops, because I give a fairly like well-known workshop on conflict, and I always talk about the third act breakup because it is this test. If you think about it as a test, right? The test is, if you think about building I agree with Jen, by the way, or I agree with you, Jen. Who am I talking to? I don't know. Everyone. I agree with Jen. Jen is right, is the important thing. That third act breakup is actually rooted in character. So, for example, we'll use our very favorite Sweet Baby Derek Craven. Everyone has read that, right?
No pressure, everybody.
We're talking about Lisa Kleypas's Dreaming of You. Obviously, we love this book so much, we invented a holiday related to its hero. It's fine. But so if we think about Craven, right? And spoiler alert, if you haven't read that book and you don't want to hear about the third act breakup in that book, you should, I don't know, skip forward a few
honestly,
minutes.
how do you talk about third act breakups without
Skip to your
spoiling
next
books, right?
chapter, I guess.
Until we spoil the next book we talk about.
Exactly.
Fine.
So if you think about the ending, right, the third act breakup, there are a couple of breakups in that book, right? There's the breakup where Sarah beats the hell out of Dodge and goes back to Greenwood Corners. And Derek loses his whole mind because he feels a feeling, right? But what's interesting about that is you could call that a breakup, but that's not a third act breakup, right? That's just a moment, a moment of tension in the course of the second act, right? Then Sarah comes back to London. There's like a whole rigmarole, very exciting, all sorts of shit happens. And then the casino burns down.
It sure does.
And Derek believes that Sarah was in the casino.
Yeah, that she is dead.
So he believes she is dead. And this is our third act breakup, right? Because here is the moment where Derek Craven has lost the one thing he was unwilling to sacrifice at the beginning of the book, right? His wealth, his power, the physical manifestation
of his desires. Yeah.
This man who has pulled himself out of the drain pipe and made himself a king has lost his castle, his throne, everything. But the test is here because none of that shit matters when in face of he's also lost Sarah. If a genie materialized in the rubble of Craven's casino and said, I will trade you Sarah's life for all of this, he would be like, there's no question. I don't want any of that. This palace of wealth and power and privilege and everything I thought I wanted is no longer even remotely interesting to me if the other option is a future in fucking Greenwood Corners with Sarah.
Right.
So there it is. It's not a breakup.
Right.
But it is the ultimate test. I mean, listen.
Yeah.
Dreaming of You is Derek Craven's book, and it is the ultimate test of Derek's whole identity. And so there it is. A perfect example of a third act breakup being necessary, being on the page, right? Like we're talking about a man who from page 1 cares about nothing but his own wealth and power.
Yes.
Choosing another person. Which is also the most uncomfortable thing Derek Craven could possibly do.
Oh, God, yes. No, I mean, he's made a life of not doing that, right?
Right.
Being only tenuously tied to, like, people around him.
Right. So that's, like, if we're talking about that as, like, the extreme, like, I think of the third act breakup as a continuum because I'm, like, further conservative on the third act breakup than you are, meaning, like, I'm more rigid than you are. I'm, like, I think every book has one.
I think every book should have one.
I mean, I think every book is attempting to have one. How about that?
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Danny Francis, author of Silver Elite.
This is the first book in Danny Francis's new dystopian romance series where psychic gifts are basically a death sentence. So the heroine of this book, Wren Darlington, has spent her entire life in hiding because she is a modified person, meaning she has these intense psychic abilities. She is one of the most powerful mods ever to exist on this planet, the continent. And the truth is that being modified means that you are incredibly powerful to, in her case, the rebel uprising, but you are also incredibly powerful if you are captured and used for evil by the bad guys, the people in charge. Wren makes one careless mistake. It puts her in big danger. She gets caught by the baddies, and she convinces them using her abilities to put her into their most elite training program, thinking this gives her an opportunity to really get at them from the inside. Problem is that she has this very sexy, very ruthless, and infuriatingly irresistible commanding officer, Jen.
I'm online, Sarah.
I know, me too.
Did you say ruthless?
I did. You could say it too, though, because I'm for it. His name is Cross Redden, and he doesn't miss anything when it comes to her. And he immediately is suspicious of whatever Wren is up to. So the big question is, how is she going to save the world? How is she going to keep herself safe? And how is she going to resist this super hot guy who is, also her boss, it seems like. So I'm for it.
I believe in Wren and love.
I hope it all goes wrong and then very right.
So if you have the same feeling, please check out Silver Elite. It is available in print, ebook, or audio. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Danny Francis for sponsoring this week's episode. What I found myself doing was thinking about the different kinds of third act breakup. I have titles for them that are sort of also about what the character is going through, right?
Hit me with it.
So I have 4 categories, and I think there's probably more, but these were the ones that immediately came to mind as I was trying to think of my favorite books with this, right? So one is that the person has to go home again, right? So they break up and then go home. 2 is their love is threatened, and so they self-sacrifice.
Meaning the person themselves is threatened. She dies or I do.
No, okay, yes, that's another good one. But I mean, someone comes along and says, you need to break up with them or you are going to make their life worse. And the person's like, well, I don't want that. I love them. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to break up with, right?
I see.
Self-sacrifice.
You're ruining their life. Here's a check for $100,000.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. Right. And I'm interested in those because I think they can be really good. Then there's the who am I breakup. I am with this person, but now something has happened that made me realize am I still the person I was at the beginning? I need to figure that out. And then, listen, I'm not going to lie. I love the you fucked all the way up breakup where the person's like, fuck you.
I'm out.
So those are my 4 types. I think there's probably more.
I think that's fair. I think there's also, and I think this falls on the lighter end of the spectrum of breakups, but there's also this falls into the person has to leave bucket, but there's the logistics of it, right?
Yeah.
The kind of, and I don't just mean well, you live in one city and I live in the other, and what are we going to do? But I mean, I'm thinking about Christina Lauren's Something Wilder, right? Which I remember Christina once saying to me, Something Wilder doesn't have a third act breakup. And and I think it does, though, because I think the main characters, the protagonists of that book, have to sort out how they are going to be together after this adventure. I think it is such a sort of hand waving light touch third breakup, that book, because we've been through, here's the other thing. You can deliver a light touch breakup or third act, crisis point, if over the course of the book, so much has happened that they've been tested again and again and again. in that book, Lily and Leo have, it's a second chance, right? Lily and
Mm-hmm.
Leo have really been through it over the course of not just the book, but like prior to the book. Leo and Lily were together. Leo worked on the ranch with Lily and her father. And then as they sort of move through, then Leo leaves and goes off and like makes a life for himself on the other side of the country. He comes back with like a group of kind of blowhard men who were there for like a bachelor party, or like, I don't know. I don't remember quite what the situation was that brought all these men to the ranch. But now Lily does these tours of the like the Red Rock Canyons in Utah. And so she's about to take them out on a like week-long tour of this, it's like a nature trail where they camp out under the stars and they, do whatever, guided by Lily and her assistant. And everything goes haywire in the first like night of the tour, and a man dies. And then, but they're also like hunting treasure. There's a dead body. Like there's all sorts of stuff that happens. It's like a real classic road trip setup, right? And at the whole way through, Lily and Leo are sort of falling back, and they're reconciling. They're reconciling what happened before. They're reimagining each other. They're rebuilding their vision of what a life could be together, and they're really falling for each other as the constant tests arrive from the wilderness, from the other people on the tour, from all different areas and all sides, really. And then when they get back to the ranch and they're done, the journey is finished, everything's sorted, Christine and Lauren are so good at like tying everything up in like this beautiful bow. The final question is, well, how are we going now that we have sorted it all, right? We've been through the fire. We've lived quite happily in the fire swamp, right?
Right.
How do we survive on the other side? And the answer is so easy for them because these are two decent people who love each other, and so it like seamlessly resolves. But like the test was there the whole time on page. And then at the end, there is a moment of like, I choose you. I choose us and everything else. I choose the discomfort of being in love with you.
Right.
Over the comfort of being unhappy.
They knew what it was like to be apart, right?
Yeah.
Like this is rooted in like what happened to them in the past, right?
Yep.
Like they didn't choose each other and now they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
I had Beautiful Stranger, which is my like low-key favorite, right? As in the You Fucked All the Way Up category. And at the end, and this one is about Max and Sarah. And what happens is they meet and essentially like engage in this like sort of odyssey of like kind of like really understanding, in this case, Sarah's own like sexuality, right? Which it turns out she has a real interest in exhibitionism, right? Like they fuck all over town in really kind of precarious situations. But it's always like, there's always like kind of like safe, like it's dangerous, but also like he's scouting out locations where like they can do this, but it's kind of safe. And it's really interesting because at the end of the book, and I like kind of was like I went back and reread it because I remember the restoration, but I couldn't really remember why they broke up. They broke up is she allows him to take photographs of her.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, his bags are stolen at the airport. And it includes like an SD card with her photographs. And not her photographs don't exactly get into like a public space, but the tabloids get hold of it, of his phone, and it's like all these pictures of women. And she is really devastated. Like, just like, I thought I was different. I mean, she just feels this tremendous amount of mistrust. Like she can't even talk to him about it. And he's of course leaving like frantic messages, but she essentially like like for romance reasons, she's like in his apartment or something. And she goes back in and sees that he has all these like photographs of her. She realizes like something about seeing the way he sees her allows her at this moment to realize like there's a story there and she needs to hear it. But like my whole, like, here is a woman who like the exhibitionism is like presented as like a sexual thing for most of the book,
Mm-hmm.
but it's being seen at the end, like
Mm-hmm.
literally, right? That allows her, like, that's the whole point. The whole point for her. And so it's like one of these books where it really deftly turns his, like, he's a man who's been with a lot of women. He's taking these photographs of her. He maybe didn't protect like this SD card or whatever, like all this stuff that she's really upset about. It's in the tabloid. She didn't want to be seen that way. Right. And it's really fascinating the way this book, like, really, like, I think interrogates and plays with this idea of like this question about like, what does it mean to be seen in lots of different ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, when I read that, I was like, of course, this is going to be the ending to the book where the inciting incident is, I think I like having sex in public, is I think I like being seen in private.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that to me, it's like, but you can't get there without her, like, sort of being afraid of kind of what she's discovered about herself.
Yes. I mean, and this is the whole God. I mean, this is the joy of it, right? That
Yes.
fear of discovery.
Yes.
Like, we joke all the time, like we love a hero who's never felt a feeling. But in that scenario, that's a heroine, right? Who's like
Yes. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
terrified of who
Yes.
she might have to admit to being in
Correct.
order.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, it feels like often, and this is, I think historical really shines here. Like these kind of high octane third act breakups are the realm of historical. And I think about, like, I mean, I honestly can't think of a single one of my books where there isn't a real, like, high level, like, everything's on the line. They've been like, and it's usually external too, right? Like,
Right.
because, and people ask all the time about my books, and I think Lisa's early books are like this too. I think Caribbean Heiress in Paris is like this, where like the climactic scene is actually putting people in danger. Like, and it's usually like one character is heavily in danger. And for whatever reason, like sometimes there's a bad guy, sometimes it's just like bad luck, like, whatever the thing is. But the reason why, so there's this external moment where it feels like all is lost. Two characters, like the character, they can't be together right now because she's been blown up, or she's been blown up in one of my cases, right? Or she's like tied up in a warehouse that's on fire in Caribbean Heiress, right? And so, like, if you have these kinds of these endings, these kind of external endings, what it does is it just is a throat punch to the other character to realize that, like, again, Derek Craven style, here is the sacrifice you are going to be forced to make. Like, you can have revenge, or, the business, or the power, or the money, or the whatever, or you can have this person. And I think there is something really breathless and beautiful about how historical can do this, largely in a way that, like, becomes less believable in a lot of ways in contemporary, because there's Vaseline on the lens of historicals, where that throat punch happens and it activates that final breathless feeling that, like, holy shit, I'm so unreasonably in love with them.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I think a lot, like, mafia romance or whatever, like, tends to like work for me, because you do have, like, right, the threat of violence, like literal,
Yeah.
like literal, like, so I think, so a book I reread this week, that has this, and the, like, the flavor varietal is the, like, the self-sacrifice is Hidden Truths by and it's part of the Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altidge. And in this one, it's Sergey and Angelina, and Angelina essentially has been her it's a mafia romance, right? Her father was a cartel leader in Mexico
Mm-hmm.
who has been killed. And the killer is like, I'm going to force you to marry me. And at the beginning of the book, her grandmother essentially like sneaks her out onto like a drug into a drug shipment, essentially, to like go across the border. And what happens is Sergey, who works for like the Russian mafia, like his boss is like pissed and is going to blow up this transport, but they've heard that there's like a person on there. So he's like, well, I'll get her out of there. And then he is like, immediately, as these characters are, just like, kind of like this one, I feel this, connection with her. I cannot let her go. But the thing about Sergey that's really interesting is he was trained as an assassin by like a evil government agency, right? And so he is actually really struggles with like disassociating when like things really freak him out. He is so steeped in violence that he can't sometimes like understand when violence is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brings her home and he's like, I'm going to find out the truth and I'm going to take care of her. And at the end, and he is like this protector, like it's my job to protect her, right? I found her, I saved her from whatever was happening. It's going to be my job to protect her. And at the end, what happens is like they're in a mall, they've fallen in love and, she can like reach him. She doesn't think he's crazy, literally. And she's approached in like a mall bathroom by a woman who's like, I've got a phone call for you. And it's the evil guy who killed her dad, who's basically like, I have men outside. They're going to kill Sergey, right? Like he's in the hallway waiting for her if you don't agree to come back to me. And so she essentially is so terrified for Sergey that she agrees to go back, right? And the thing is like, again, the reason this is so perfect is like, one is like, we saw someone sacrifice to save her at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So of course it has to end with her sacrificing to save someone else. That's just the way it goes. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think furthermore, no one has ever sacrificed for Sergey. He has been trained as a killer and that is all he's good for. Mm-hmm. And so to have someone instead say like, no, I'm going to save you. I have the power to like save your life when that's his job. Right. And it's terrific. And I think it's like one of those ones where like, sure, I have read the ones where like someone just like rolls up and is like, if you don't do this, his hockey career is ruined or whatever. Mm-hmm. But in this case, right, like the way this wraps up, we knew all along she was in danger and she wouldn't tell Sergey about it. And we knew all along that like the sacrifices that were made to get her out of there were never going to be enough to keep her out of there, right? So it felt full circle. It did not feel unearned, right? And then, of course, he just comes and kills everybody and it's happily ever after.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Cara Dion, author of Claim to Fame.
So Broadway actress Hannah Matthews knows what it's like to be in the spotlight, but not that kind of spotlight, which is the spotlights of the paparazzi on her fire escape. She is all of a sudden the star of a big tabloid scandal and she doesn't want anything to do with it. So she decides to decamp, as one does, to a quaint New England town where she can have some peace and quiet and coincidentally some time with her no-strings hookup buddy, Ethan Hart. Now, Ethan loves his privacy and his hometown, and to the point where like everyone's just like, oh yeah, Ethan, the vineyard owner, and they do not know that he also moonlights as one of romance's spiciest audiobook narrators. I love it.
Oh, that's the best.
The other big secret he has is that he is falling in love with Hannah, but she is so determined to keep him in the friends with benefits zone. So once they become roommates, it's like all bets are off. All of a sudden they're flirting and like dating, but are the paparazzi going to find them and kind of thrust them into the limelight just when they are trying to figure out, or like finally be able to figure out what it means to be a couple, even though one of them is famous and one is secret famous.
If you love a curvy heroine small town romance with a little bit of celebrity normie flavor, you're going to love this very spicy Claim to Fame. Book 4 in the Astor Bay series are they're all interconnected standalones, is available for pre-order right now on Amazon. You can get it in print or or on May 27th, you can download it with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. Thanks to Cara Dion for sponsoring this week's episode. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to pre-order the book. Thanks to Cara Dion for sponsoring this week's episode. I think the trickier ones are, so there's like the obvious, right? There's like the super light touch, and I want to talk about some others that I think are like good examples of the super light touch. There's the like wildly heavy touch, right? The like, and where it's just so obvious that like it's happening, that everything's gone to shit and now it really is a test.
Yeah.
And listen,
I like those too. Yeah.
Those are my favorites. But these sort of like middle ones where, everybody acts like a fucking grown up. Like that's, I think, a really difficult needle to thread for an author. One of the ones, and again, like not to keep coming back to Lisa, but like she's just so good. But so many people think Winterborn is like the best of her books. And like the truth is that breakup lasts how many minutes?
3.
5.
5, right? Exactly. No, 5.
I mean,
minutes,
not 5, less than 5 minutes, right? It's literal. But what's interesting about that, and I think this is a real cornerstone of a number of those like kind of middle way third act breakups, is like self-doubt propels the breakup, right?
Oh,
it's that final moment where like Helen sees that she could have it, but knows that she, in this case, like knows she has a secret that she hasn't told Rhys. Not that Rhys will ever in a million years care about this secret because he loves her so very much. But like that doubt, that sort of heavy feeling, often propelled by a piece of information that the character has not shared. Another book that does this beautifully is Beverly Jenkins's Forbidden.
Yes.
Where like the hero of that book has a secret that he is terrified of revealing. And then when he does reveal it, the whole town is like, yeah, we know. Right? And it's such a like, again, this kind of like very real sense of Beverly Jenkins having built a community of characters in the book who we believe would respond the way that they do. And like really like launching the breakup and then whisking the air out of the sail of it, like deft. In a move that is so deft, it just like only proves that Bev is like the best of us, right? And I think, that is true. So there it is. Again, the test is not necessarily on page in either of those books, right? Because Rhys, we know as readers, like this is no test at all. Like Rhys is obsessed with her and won't care a whit about the secret. And in Forbidden, the test is internal. It's like just the hero messing around in his own head.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the thing that's brilliant about Forbidden, and we've talked about Forbidden a lot, is he is like, he has been passing, but he has also like gone out of his way to help the Black community in his town. He's essentially like, I, from this position, can do a lot of things I wouldn't, right? And then when he stops passing, he is essentially saying like, I have to be true to who I am as a person. And this is going to allow me to be like, to help. I can still do all those things, but I get to be me too. I didn't have to make a sacrifice of my own identity to do it. And I think that's the part that's like, it's so, that book is so brilliant. Yeah. It's so good. Right. So I think that's exactly right. Is right. It's in character, rooted in character.
Another book that people often point to as saying like, oh, it doesn't have a third act breakup is Courtney Milan's The Duke Who Didn't, which Courtney herself has sort of said like she really wanted to write a book where there was no misunderstanding. There was nothing at the end that would like cause a a break in the fabric of the relationship. It was just like a constant move toward them being together. However, in that book also, the hero is grappling with the breakup in his head, quote breakup, right? Like he's grappling with his own choices, like the things he has and has not told people, the way he has and has not lived in this town in his own head. And so we witness this is a good example of how third person point of view works in a unique way. We witness his own we witness the tension in his in like his emotions through the lens of a third person narrator. So we can simultaneously see the danger of it and also the reality that like he is overthinking. Right? It's a way, again, to pull the wind quickly out of the sail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of my favorite breakups, like that is an actual breakup, is and again, I know these are books like we've talked about before, but I think there's a reason these are my favorites, right? Like,
it's just easier when you're talking about books that you know so well.
That I know so well, and that I've reread and read millions of times. And often to me, this is like one of the ways I approach like what books should I talk about was like what are the books where I reread the ending over and over again because it really hits. And one of them for me is Lead by Kylie Scott. And in Lead, we have Lena and Jimmy. And Jimmy is, the lead singer of the band. And Lena starts off as his sobriety companion. And the way that she gets hired is basically like she's just like quit a shitty job. And like she happens to be in their manager's office. And one of the other guys is like, why don't you do this? And the thing that is really amazing about this book is it really, in some ways, is like the classic, like kind of what would cause the breakup, right? So she tells Jimmy that she loves him. And it just freaks him the fuck out. And the reason for this, again, is because, and he's told this to her, like his own mother was essentially like emotionally abusive and told him over and over again, like, no one's ever going to love you. And so when Lena tells him that, right, it's like it's this great moment, like they're in a bathroom, she's just giving him a blowjob, right? And she tells him, and she's like, almost like the way it's described, just like, it came out of my mouth, I couldn't stop it. It was bigger than I was, right? And it also has like one of my favorite, so then like, they come back, they have kind of sex. She really gets that this is over. Like she knows, and she goes into the kitchen the next morning and like the whole fucking band is there. And he's just being a total dick to her. And she looks him dead in the eye and she's like, fire me. Right? This was always how it was going to end. And it's like, and I'm not a person who really remembers like sentences and lines, but I remember like if I probably could have this tattooed on me, Kylie, I love you. Right? And Lena thinks we'd gone into free fall when I told him I loved him. It was time to hit the ground. Like she knows what's coming. And she is like, I know what's going to happen. And I know, like, I cannot like suffer through him demoting me back to just being Lena, the sobriety companion. She's like, this is always how it's going to end. Fire me. And he does. And it's like this heartbreaking moment because she then looks at him and she's like, you can't go back to using. You promised me. Like, she's like, right. It is to me like one of the most emotional, like third act breakups ever.
And she loves him so much.
She loves him so much. And she just knows that this is how it's going to go. And then she goes back home. And the whole entire book, she has been avoiding going home because her sister is getting married to her ex-boyfriend. Her sister stole her boyfriend and now they're getting married. And it's this great scene where she's like with her dad and, and it's like, it really is. It just really hits in every way.
And a good example of like how, again, in first person deployed beautifully, that works.
Yes.
Because you're so deep with her.
No, and that's it. She's really like, it's over. I'm going back to my shitty little town. But this line about like, it was time to hit the ground, I think about all the time, right? Because I think that is a good third act breakup makes you feel sick to your stomach. Like, these two dummies belong together. And yet, and listen, here's my thing. Like, I was kind of like play fighting with somebody on Threads this week about like crying in romance, right? Fine. But I was like, where are the emotions coming from? They're coming from like moments where like the loss, the I am convinced it's over is a devastating thing when you are in love
Mm-hmm.
with someone. And
Mm-hmm.
fuck, I love it. Like, put it in my veins. I've reread the scene where they fight in the kitchen from like the bathroom to like the end when he comes to her sister's wedding and like
And
sings. It's great.
sings.
Right.
Amazing.
And then like I have read that part of Lead, I don't know, 50 times. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Rachel Griffiths, author of The Trouble with Anna.
So we talked about this one a couple of times, especially in our horse episode. But here we go. Anna did not intend to ride in a high stakes horse race or start up a betting ring. She definitely did not mean to find herself in a bunch of darkened corners with Lord Julian Ramsay, both fighting and kissing. But here's the deal. She loves her grandfather's estate, and she loves it because it is where she grew to love horses. Problem is, Grandpa's dead, and his will stipulates that if Anna wants to inherit this place that she believes is hers by right and also by passion, she is going to have to marry, and she is going to have to marry Lord Julian Ramsay. So these two are going to have to fight it out and do other things it out in order to win the day, win the horse race, and win each other's hearts.
If you would like to read The Trouble with Anna, it is available in print, ebook, and in audio. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Rachel Griffiths for sponsoring this week's episode.
I would be interested in spending time with some of these authors who say like, I don't love a third act breakup. Like, I don't want to do it. And like just listening to what their process is, because for me, my process almost like I can't write until I can see the third act breakup.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the test, until you can see the test.
And I have to be able to see the test. And like, that's what I always refer to when I talk about my books as like the set piece ending. Like, what is the thing that happens that sets just chaos into motion and like dials all the feelings up? But like, I appreciate that. Like, that's just because that's the kind of like when you cut your teeth on Judith McNaught, that's just how it goes. Right. And I think I think you talked about what was your fourth bucket? You fucked all the way up.
Yeah.
And also she fucked all the way off. Right?
Yeah, right.
And like that's like kiss for me on the continuum that I always like present as part of my PowerPoints. Kiss an Angel is on the far right, which is so like in the wind with a gorilla.
Goodbye.
Right?
Yeah. She doesn't even, like it's gone, baby, gone. I love that shit.
He has to find her. As you were talking, I had a thought, which was, is it possible? I mean, I think we've done an episode on second chance, right? So one of the questions that Adriana talks about all the time when she talks about how she writes, she often, like, when she builds a character, she asks herself, like, what is the lie that a character tells themselves, right? So in which case, like, that lie, whatever that lie is, has to ultimately be tested. And, like, we have to see them fear that lie is true, right? Like, that everything they thought was real is, like, now that they have they've had the taste of what it is like to have that not be true, now there is the threat that it actually is, right? So like the lie that I tell myself is that I cannot be loved because I had a terrible relationship with my father. And then this is, every romance hero of a certain decade. And then, and then you meet a woman, you meet the heroine, she's bright and beautiful and like birds of light on her shoulder. And she teaches you that you maybe can be loved despite your terrible father. And then boom, at the end, there's this like fear that maybe you're not worthy of it, right? Like you really can't be. And so, That's a sort of very clear arc of that. But one of the things that I was thinking about related to second chance romance is you need the second chance is in many cases like it begins with the third act breakup. And then you do a whole nother story. And then the third act breakup at the end of a second chance romance is that sort of fear that we've gone back to the beginning again. So second chance is a really interesting structure. And I say this only because it seems like second chance is very big right now. And I wonder if part of the reason why we're hearing so much just discourse on whether or not we, quote, need a, quote, third act breakup, right?
Yeah.
Is because in second chance, you've already been through the trauma. But you still need the test, I would argue, at the end.
Yeah, because otherwise, what has changed?
Otherwise, what are you doing?
Otherwise, you're the same people you were before. Yeah.
A book that does this really well is Yulin Kwang's How to End a Love Story. Is not second chance because the characters weren't together at the very beginning, like in the past, but they knew each other in the past. And there's this sort of like very big traumatic event that begins the book where her sister commits suicide at the very beginning of the book in high school. And she commits suicide by stepping in front of a car and the hero was driving the car. So like, oh my God, like brutal, right? Then, years later, they meet again in Hollywood in the writer's room. She's a famous author. He's, the second in command in this writer's room, and they fall in love over the course of the book. And at the end of this book, there's this like really interesting moment where this isn't actually about, here's a good example of like a heroine who has to really be tested, right? Like this hero is all in from the jump, but she ends up being the one who like just can't quite look him dead in the eye because she hasn't reckoned with her own relationship to the past.
Yeah.
Right. And so she, despite the fact that they love each other, they care, like it's obvious that these two are right for each other. When they get there to that final test, it is an actual breakup and it makes sense on page because she still hasn't dealt with her shit. And so she like walks away. And he knows he can't follow her. Same as Kylie. Although in Kylie's world, it's more, I would say like on the spectrum, Kylie lands further right than Yulin does. Because I think like what Yulin is doing is a like different kind of like having to reckon with your shit.
And I mean, I think that's like the thing that is like the third act breakup is like the moment where, like I said, you just see them deciding they have to figure it out and make it work, right? And I really feel like, I don't know, like I just love it when it's perfectly done,
Yeah.
And I think that like sometimes I understand, like even I can be like, I see this isn't perfect or it couldn't be better, but I see like what it's trying to do, right? And I think like a really interesting another, like, okay, so one of the ones I'm most interested in, and I think is also probably the hardest to pull off, is the like, who am I breakup, right? So one of the people essentially is like, do I want to be the person I am in this relationship?
Give me an example.
So I'm going to talk about another one of these. I've been rereading these Neva Altage. I don't know how to say her name. I'm sorry, everybody. I've been rereading these books. Okay, so it's the first one's called Painted Scars. And in this book, it's about Nina and Roman. And Nina essentially is married off to like, he's the head of the Russian mafia in Chicago. Fine. At one point, they go uphill to his house. I was like, this woman's never been in Chicago. It's fine. I'm okay. So Nina, her father stole money from the mob. And essentially, she's married off to Roman to like make this, make the money thing even. And she's an artist and she's kind of like, look, you're going to do what you're going to do and this is fine. But it's also very clear from the beginning that she has been traumatized by a past boyfriend. I mean, she's like, you can't ever lay on top of me. You can't ever put your hands anywhere near my neck. And Roman's like, who did this to you? And she's like, I'm never going to tell you. I'm never going to tell you. Right. And promise me, if you find out, I don't ever want you to do anything about it. Like, I have figured this out. I've gone to therapy. Like, I'm fine. And at the end of the book, through like a coincidence, like she sees this guy and Roman immediately clocks, this is the guy that hurt you. And he tortures and kills him. And Nina leaves him. Nina leaves Roman. And at the first time I read it, I was kind of like she knew what Roman was doing down to other dudes in the basement, right? Like, why is this different? And it's also great because it has one of my favorite microtropes ever, which is like after she leaves, he just acts like a little like freaks out the like right Lothair cutting out his heart and sending to Ellie in a box. She sends Roman divorce papers and he sends her back an envelope full of ashes. This kind of shit, right? I love it.
Perfect.
Nina essentially, whether or not we believe this or not, is like, he made a promise to me in our relationship that if I said don't do something, that right, he wouldn't do it, and he did it. So who am I in this relationship? I know that I'm married to a mafia guy. I know that violence and murder is a part of his world, but does it have to be a part of my world? What does it mean for me to then be a part of that world? I'm not sure it's perfectly executed.
That is a very difficult way to do it. Because who am I in this relationship at 90% of the way through the book is a really hard.
Yeah. And it's something that had been sort of ongoing, right? She's like, I'm not a mafia person. I got pulled into this world. It was supposed to be for a shorter, right? Like, there's all these ways in which I think she felt like she had escape routes.
It's a little like McCreeve.
Yes.
Which is a book in Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark, and a really incendiary one. Like, people either love McCreeve or hate it. And I think one of the reasons why is because it's asking that question. Like, if I am not the person you thought I was when we got together, or like if you believed one thing was true about us or about me, and then you find out that that is not the thing that is true, and the thing that is true is like core to my identity.
Yeah.
You know, how do we go on? And I think in McCreeve, right? So that's structured in a way where, you know, McCreeve is like his arch villain. He basically like he has a problem with succubi, right? They like he just can't even fathom even looking at them. He falls in love with the heroine only to discover that she is in fact a succubi, which she didn't even know she was. So when she becomes one around him, and he's like, she's my fated mate, but also a succubi, and I hate her forever, the like tension of the breakup there is really brutal because she can't change who she is, right? Like she is the spotted leopard, which it sounds like he is the spotted leopard, right? In this book. The part of the reason why I think this book, McCreeve, is such a struggle for Cressley readers is it feels like you're dancing on a nice point, like with the betrayal piece there. Like, you have to love her you can have all of her or none of her.
Right. I think that's exactly right. And I think that that's what like Nina is really coming to terms with, especially because, again, like, right, like the inciting incident creates the third act breakup. She essentially was forced to marry him. So when she leaves him, and then like she leaves him because then it's like we all realize like that marriage was never really on solid ground because she didn't really have a choice coming into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when she walks away, what we understand it's a shorthand for if she's going to come back, it's with her eyes wide open, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fully realizing what he's capable of and, you know, and then what she's capable of,
mm-hmm.
right? Like what this really means.
What is that book, Natasha?
Oh, the unwanted wife.
That's the same.
Yeah, I mean,
but it doesn't happen at the end.
No, again, it's second chance. It happens at the beginning, and I would argue, Run, Posey, Run. Essentially, it's like first act breakup, right? Like, and then I'm going to come back. If I come back, it's going to have to be different. And what's that going to mean, right? But my point here is like, it's a test. Right. I mean, we're here talking about like the far more classic setup is to have this happen in the back end of the book.
Listen, it is the sign of like a good writer to be able to flip the whole thing on on its head and make it a first act breakup, right?
Oh, yeah, right? And like keep you invested. Wait, why should I care about before you even care about these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I really understand is that romance is a really big tent, and there's so many different things it gives to people, right? And I think for me, like in my personal life, in my marriage, my long relationship with Mr. Reed's romance, I can name you the points in my relationship where it like could have gone another way.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right. And I think that's why I love these moments so much, because I have, and I'm not typically a person who brings like my personal life into my romance reading, like, but it means something to me because I feel like I have had those moments as a person, and I've had them with my friends, and I've had them with family members where you're like, am I committed to this person or not? And I think that is why, romance is really powerful if there are no stakes. Right? The third act breakup is about saying like relationships have stakes. And that's what I like about them.
I think the third act breakup is also about the moment where you double down, right? You're like, I choose you.
I choose you. Yes.
Because at the beginning of a romance, it's fated, right? Like at the beginning of the romance that I write, I choose them, right? Like I say, here are two people. We're gonna hang out with them for 400 pages. Let's see what happens. But at the end of the book, they get to choose each other. I think we've done the job. Everybody, Jen and I are third act breakup evangelists.
We are.
If you hadn't noticed. But tell us about the books that you have read where you think the third act breakup is like crackerjack, because we want to know.
Oh, yeah, I want to read them.
And other than that, that's where we are. Come see us at Fated Mates Live in St. Louis on July 8th. Tickets are available at fatedmates.net/live. If you head over to that website, you will also be able to find all of the tour dates that I have for the month of July. Every one of them comes with a copy of These Summer Storms, including Fated Mates Live. But Fated Mates Live also comes with the city of St. Louis, Jen, Kate Claiborne, and all of the Midwest.
The entire Midwest will be there.
We are so excited to see you. It's going to be a great time. In the meantime, if you would like to just hang out with us more and more, you can join our Patreon at fatedmates.net/Patreon. That gives you access to the Discord where 1,000 or so other listeners are hanging out all the time talking about romance novels. It also gives you access to one extra episode of what we call Banter Plus every month. Where we just talk about whatever's going on. We talk about books we're reading. We talk about, the world and how we feel. You can also head to fatedmates.net and smash that link for collections to see some of the many collections that our friends and listeners are putting together. They're awesome. You're going to love them. You can find us online at Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And other than that,
have a great week.
Hope you don't have a third act breakup.
I choose you, everybody. I choose you.
Aw. I choose you too, everyone. Bye.